You're listening to Were You Still Talking? The rest of the ongoing things will come around eventually.
What are the other ongoing things?
Acting, directing.
Oh, okay. Well, we can talk about some of that stuff. Yeah.
Aliens, drugs, whatever.
We can skip the
Had a nice one about going to the country fair.
Oh, did you? Did you go? I've never
We
been.
went. Oh, it's very
Do you go
interesting.
every year?
No, I hadn't been for 10 years.
Oh, really?
And I had a friend he's from LA, but he's now in Ashland. Of course, he's never been. He's heard a lot about it. And
he would be
I thought,
into that.
what the hell? Let's go. Yeah. Let's give it a try.
So did you guys like drop acid and run around naked?
We did microdosing of mushrooms. So we did like a teeny tiny bit of mushrooms.
And did you run around naked?
And we didn't because that's not a thing anymore.
No.
It's not like it was. But
no. Then what's the purpose of going?
Well, there's a lot of nakedness. I mean, you're welcome to do that if you want. It's perfectly okay, as it turns out. All this family-friendly stuff is like, yeah, sort of.
Yeah, well,
But,
families can be naked. You know.
Well, I remember last time I went, and I went when I was younger, and I remember seeing a lot of people that maybe didn't need to be naked. Like, it's okay if you put your clothes back on.
But they were comfortable.
They were comfortable.
That's the thing.
Well, that's a nice
right.
thing. Is
so,
that they do what you want.
I mean, I've
play
been
in
to
the
a nudist
woods.
beach, and, there are often people there who are not models, but they're comfortable because the clothing binds.
Right. It does. I'm not a big fan of clothing. It's one of the reasons I love Hawaii, because you can wear minimal clothing and
yes,
be very comfortable,
yes.
So
if you're a Sasquatch, you could do that here.
If you're a Sasquatch, some people seem to be fine with it. They're from Alaska or something. But anyway, there was a lot of young people with very, very scantily clad. And I was surprised, one, that there were so many young people still into it. I thought that was cool.
When you say young, like over the age of 18?
I hope so.
Okay.
No, 18 to 35. A lot of the booths seem to have these people standing in front of them. Mostly females.
Okay.
But not all.
Okay.
I don't know why they would put scantily clad women in front of their booths.
I can't imagine. You said booths, and I was thinking,
Lately,
did he say boobs?
Booths. No. Booths. It's really it's a giant Saturday market, but not. I mean, everyone is really warm and friendly, and we're at the fair, and we're all a family today, and it's wild.
And you're all like tripping.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't need anything to trip there. It doesn't take much. Because there's so many different costumes and just crazy artwork going on and giant walking pieces of artwork.
Really?
And there was a Jerry Garcia that was like 10 feet tall.
Wow.
And walking through the crowd.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it was, that kind of thing is just constant. It's like
that's awesome.
Everywhere you look,
there's plenty to see.
Yeah.
So in 1 weekend and a half, I'm going down to San Francisco to Folsom Street Fair. I don't know if you know what that is.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've never been. And so, here I am in my mid-50s, and I'm a gay Leatherman kind of guy, and I've never been to Folsom Street, which is like the mecca for Leathermen to go to. It's a one-afternoon thing in San Francisco on the street where Leathermen are wearing leather and nothing.
Makes sense. And nothing.
And nothing. And San Francisco, has got this code about no nudity anymore and so forth, except they waive it for this event.
Oh, awesome.
Right.
That's cool.
And I've seen plenty of pictures from Folsom Street where there's more than just people being naked going on. So my new boyfriend has said that he wanted to go down. And I was like, hey, I've never gone, so let's go. So we're going.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I hauled out and I bought some leathers and all that kind of stuff.
And are you okay with that on the podcast?
Are you asking?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, I could start there.
I thought we started 10 minutes ago.
Oh, great, okay. Yeah, I'll just skip the introduction for this one. So I usually do an introduction, but It's always been my goal to get away from that anyway.
Well, you just did.
I just did. Today on the podcast, we have Paul Bright.
The Leatherman.
The Leatherman, Paul Bright Films.
And no, we haven't been smoking anything.
And we haven't.
No.
Yeah. This is all natural. El natural. As is the Leatherman.
It's on the Leatherman.
Parade.
We'll see. I'll post pictures.
Right on. Cool. So Paul is an actor, producer, writer, director.
All that jazz.
All that jazz.
Yeah.
And has a new boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
That's totally exciting. I looked it up. It was our 4-month anniversary yesterday. Day before yesterday.
Really new. Yeah.
Yeah. He thought, really? That's all? His response was, I thought we'd been together a lot longer.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah, I know. On Saturday in the car, he's telling me, it feels like years.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, in a good way? In a
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's really sweet. He's totally awesome. It's funny because I felt madly in love once before, love at first sight kind of thing, which I thought before that happened that could never ever happen, truly. Mm-hmm. So when it did happen many years ago, I was just totally flabbergasted. And it was one of those things where we just clicked, immediately.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were together 5 years and then Tim died. So that was the end of that.
Oh.
But when he died, I was like, okay, I'll never have that experience again of falling madly in love, love at first sight kind of thing. That just won't happen. I had my shot in life. And then here along comes Colton. So, yeah, I mean, we just clicked right away.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So, yeah.
And the strange thing is that he is 26 years younger than I am.
God, 26 years younger.
Yeah. Wow. More than that, 28 years
I thought
younger.
he looked kind of young.
Yeah. 28 years younger.
Floating around.
And
wow.
So he's really unbelievably, it sounds terrible, very mature for his age. But man, we just get along. And he loves things from the 80s. I mean, he's seen all these movies from the 80s, and he knows all these rock bands from the 80s. Well, you and I grew up in the 80s.
Exactly. That's bizarre.
He wasn't born until the 90s.
Right.
I'm going, you're telling me about the 80s?
It's pretty popular these days. I know some other people that are really into a lot of stuff from the 80s and 70s that are, 35 years old. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah, I know.
What?
I was going, how is that possible? But see, I don't know. I remember in the 80s, we were talking about how terrible the music was. Because we were looking back to the Beatles from the 60s, which were really good musicians.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about, oh my God, this music is horrible.
Terrible. I did that for a long time because I was into, the Led Zeppelins and the Rolling Stones and all that good music.
Yeah, the good stuff. Yeah.
All that good stuff. And so I think it was late 80s, early 90s where I discovered the Police and U2 and stuff. And I went, oh wait, they are from the 80s, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. So Rick Ocasek died yesterday?
Yesterday or today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I mean, that's of our era too.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that was the beginning of MTV, which is no longer really MTV.
No,
I don't know what MTV is now, but
we saw.
Not what we. They showed like the videos that were extremely popular, and I thought, well, we could do that with an iPhone now.
How quaint!
Exactly. That's really nuts. That was a big.
It was a big deal.
Big deal video.
Yeah.
They were groundbreaking. And
totally revolutionary. I know.
I played every one of those songs in one cover band or another.
I just remember I would go house sit at my music teacher's house when she was off with her husband vacationing somewhere, And I'd be there for a week, and I'd just turn on MTV and just leave it on nonstop the whole time I was there.
Right.
Totally glued to it because we didn't have cable in my house, so...
And who did?
Well, she did.
We didn't have... Oh, okay.
Yeah, she lived in Bel Air. She did.
She did.
Yeah.
We had... I remember watching MTV, and they had some amazing, groundbreaking stuff when they first started putting on things besides video. It was things like... what was that called? They had an late-night animation show. Liquid TV. You remember Liquid TV? Oh, they had some incredible... animation there. It very much like the heavy metal style of stuff.
Really? Yeah.
All kinds of amazing.
No, I just
things.
remember like Downtown Judy Brown.
Yeah.
And,
Oh yes, yeah. Some of the and there's still a couple of MTV VJs who are big stars now who do other things.
Are they still alive?
They still look young is the weird thing.
Oh my God, it's the Dick Cavett syndrome.
Exactly. I don't know how they do it, but they still look young. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, you've got a couple of gray hairs in your head.
No, what?
Yeah, and I'm gone totally white. Completely, totally white.
Couple of gray hairs. I was so happy when my sister told me that my niece still thinks that my hair is black.
Oh, good. Well, see, for me,
nice.
It's great because all these people who are
great.
18 and 19, they just automatically assume I'm a senior, so I get a senior discount everywhere I go. I don't even have to ask. I don't say anything. And I'm not old enough to get it, but I'll take it.
But what the heck?
You're offering.
Why not?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of, it dawned on me the other day that I'm maybe old.
No, you're not old.
Well, I was trying
You're younger than I am.
I was trying to pretend. I was thinking how I'm not really middle-aged anymore. So if I'm not middle-aged, because I don't think I'll live to be 112. But it's not impossible, I guess.
No, I know we won't, but still, I mean, we're not quite in the senior range. Besides, seniors you think of as 80.
We're not seniors.
Yeah, seniors are 80.
It's so interesting.
They're the boomers' parents.
Heidi's mom was always like, why are all these old people here at the different places she lived? Everyone here is really old when she was 90, you know?
Yeah, and you're like, have you checked the mirror?
Hello. I think you're there now. Or pretty soon.
Yeah, so for the last year I've been doing stuff where I'm working with a lot of people who are very economically challenged. Mm-hmm. And so I've been going into these retirement facilities and seeing what they're really like. And I have learned I'm not going into a retirement facility. I don't care. I am going to do absolutely everything to stay in my own house. It's
really tough.
All the way.
It's really
all
tough.
The way to the end.
Every time Heidi went and visited a lot, and I know several other people whose parents have been in homes of some kind. You know, usually, what do they call it? Not usually the
assisted care.
Assisted living. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I actually know a nurse at a assisted living and nursing home care facility, and you got to be there every day. The care is still in the hands of the caregivers. So
totally.
I just always think, like, what about these people whose kids are not coming? Kids or grandkids or
oh my God. And I talked to a lot of these people, and they had the impression that their children would take care of them. Well, their children are not taking care of them. Yeah. So that is not a reason to have kids. I'm telling you right now, if you're in your 20s and thinking about children, they're not going to be there for you.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Go back and buy another Trojan, okay? Buy a good packet, a 24-pack. Yeah.
So you're working on, you started to talk about what you're working on now?
Yeah.
You're currently working on a movie.
I'm currently working on 2 movies.
Which you write, direct, act, edit.
All that stuff.
And transportation. You're also transportation and craft services. Costume.
Makeup, which is just, powder.
Which is, that's more than some of the productions I'm in. Wow, powder.
Well, if they're not glowing, Joel, you don't need it.
It's fine.
We're going for the natural look.
Yeah. When I get a real makeup artist is when I go to do the industrial videos.
Oh yeah,
that's where they've got a dolly and
you're right. Yeah, they're doing under the eye lifts and all this stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
Wow, thanks.
Oh God, I'm like 20 years younger. Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, so right, so I've got 2 feature films. I shot one this past spring, and I shot one the year before spring, and they're still both in post-production editing.
Oh, they are.
Oh my, yes.
I thought that. So the one you shot last spring.
Yeah, a year ago spring.
That was not Professor Tomfoolery.
No, that was the year before.
That was the year before.
Yeah, so Tomfoolery is out there in the world, and he's being seen all over the world. And it's funny because there are people who are liking the Facebook page every day, and I'm not doing anything on that Facebook page to promote it or generate it, or I'm not even visiting it. But I keep getting all these notifications of people who are liking it, so I'm going, I guess this movie is streaming somewhere.
It is out there.
People must be seeing this movie.
Whether legally or illegally. I like that.
Whether they're legally or illegally seeing it, I have no control. But, as long as they're seeing it, that's the most important
part. That's what matters. Just for a little behind the scenes here, Paul sent me great information and actually a fantastic intro that we skipped right over. So if you're ever on a podcast or you're going to do an interview, be sure and send them lots of information.
So that you can ignore it later. But you'll feel good because you covered your bases.
You covered your butt. You got to prepare, right?
Yeah. See, this way at least the host will know your name.
I mean, if an actor prepares, an actor, director, editor, you must really have to prepare.
Yeah, lots and lots of pre-production.
Yeah.
So I've got this course on Udemy.com. It's on how to make independent films. And, it's like, oh, God, there are like 95 videos on there. But the first 60 videos are all on pre-production. And then the rest of it's like, you can handle the rest. But, it's like all this stuff, if you do all this preparation to get ready for your shoot, all these little steps along the way, then the shoot itself will flow fairly smoothly.
It should go, yeah. Well, it's
at least when crises come up, it won't be a death sentence.
Right.
Maybe.
And that's true with every level film because you see, excuse me, you see a lot of actors, directors talking about the 10 years that they prepped for a movie.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And
I couldn't do that.
I know that. I always thought
I'm like
that
6 months.
Is
6 months.
Dedication decoration. Incredible decoration.
Yeah, a lot of decorations.
A lot of decoration.
Yeah.
10 years.
No, I'm like 6 months. So for when I. So often I haven't finished writing the script until like 2 weeks before we're filming. On this last movie that we just shot, Crossing Shaky Ground, it was the first movie I've ever made without a script.
Oh, wow. Really?
So, yeah, do you remember Mumblecore, these movies that came out in the early 2000s? They were called Mumblecore, was the genre. And the directors all hated that. But it was a movie like Puffy Chair and I can't remember all of these.
I remember one big, it was a 4-camera shoot.
Yeah.
And supposedly they didn't have a script.
Yeah,
and
possible,
they ran the whole movie. It was a lot of big name people, but they did the whole
these are all
movie.
unknowns.
Oh, these are all unknowns. Okay, it was done that way. It was done all at once.
Right, improv.
And improv, yeah.
So the deal with it, so this is kind of like a Mumblecore movie, in that there was an outline of what was supposed to happen in this film, but of course, as the actors are improving along the way, they could say things that would totally change the trajectory of where the storyline's going.
Oh, man.
And that happened. And so all I did was I supplied the actors with all their character background. Like they got a 3-page printout of, what their astrological sign is. And,
wow.
And, the kind of personality that they are and, backstory, histories of who these characters are. And then after that, I was like, okay. Meet me here at this time and we're gonna shoot. And so the concept of that movie is that the big quake that we're expecting up here at any second now,
any moment,
hits, and there's a guy from the Bay Area who's up there doing a presentation, like a conference presentation thing, and he's out in Astoria doing this presentation, and the big quake hits, and now he's got to get back home to California. And there's no way to fly back. There's no way to drive back. Everything is totally decimated and destroyed.
Oh, man.
Which, in case you don't know, we're expecting a very large earthquake up here, which will obliterate everything.
True. It's why I'm so happy we have so many squirrels around.
Because you won't go hungry. And you think they won't be leaving?
And chickens.
You're like, head for the hills, Mom, they're out to get us. But yeah, so anyways, so the whole concept of the film is that this guy who's a city urban dweller, upper middle class, or at least middle class, very liberal, bleeding heart, is encountering rural Oregonians.
Oh,
who have a completely and totally different perspective on the world.
Right.
And so what I've been doing for the last year is talking with rural Oregonians and really getting a real feel for what they believe and feel and think, and they don't know that I'm not also just like them.
Oh, really? You went undercover.
Yeah. And so it's been really fascinating, and I'm at that point where I kind of like to, not be around this environment anymore because I've had my fill. But in terms of making the movie, it's been fascinating. So I'm now moving Crossing Shaky Ground forward so that it will be the first movie that comes out. And the movie that I shot a year and a half ago will follow behind that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just to get this one out there. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure that my dear, devoted, loving, adorable fans, most of whom are open-minded, probably pretty liberal, some of them pretty progressive, I suspect that they're going to be kind of upset by what they see in this movie.
Oh, really?
It's not what we all assumed.
Uh-huh.
And the solutions that I always thought were the solutions are not the solutions at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's, and don't misunderstand, I'm not saying in any way that I'm agreeing with the rural Oregonians.
Right.
But it's just, what we thought would work is not going to do it. You can't just raise the boat. Everybody's, you raise the tide, not everybody's boat is not going to go up. It just ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, because that's what we talk about, we we just want to raise the tide for everybody so all these boats come up so everybody has a better life. Right?
Oh,
You've heard this concept, right?
Yeah.
No.
Not so much.
No. So anyway, that's what this movie is going to be getting into. So I'm calling it a docudrama, even though So what the stories that the actors are telling is they're telling real stories based on all these people who have met.
Right.
But of course there are different names and, and some of the people have been melded together into a new character. So, yeah, anyway.
Wild.
So that's the project at the moment.
Well, the most interesting part there was that you wrote all that backstory for the actors because that's a huge homework saver. As an actor, that's usually my job. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, see,
when you get that, it's like, well, that's half my job.
Yeah, and the great thing for the actors is they don't have to memorize any lines.
Well, that's beautiful.
They didn't have to memorize anything at all, except kind of have an idea of what their background was. And there were a couple of things where I said to them, okay, I do need you to say blah, 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 blah. Right. I actually do really need to hear you say
this. This is important for the story. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it was great for them because they could play and they could just enjoy the time and the camaraderie with each other to just explore. So these actors who were in this film, they're all wanting to get together and do this again.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm like, sure, let's do it again. Let me find the money to do that. Yeah.
And so
I'm still looking for the money to pay for the one that I just shot.
And you're using Patreon right now.
Patreon. Patreon.com, yeah.
Patreon, but you've used GoFundMe before.
Yeah, so I've got a GoFundMe account for this movie, Crossing Shaky Ground. But the donations, what I've learned from the past, but I did it anyway, is that when you start filming, people stop donating.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Because it's sort of like, well, he's already made the movie. He doesn't really need my money now.
Oh, wow.
Never mind how much in debt I'm personally digging, how deep that hole is going to keep filming, right? Wow. But so the mindset shifts of donors is, well, he's not really desperate. He's going to make this movie anyway. He doesn't need my money to do it. Mm-hmm. So what I'm shifting to now is a Patreon account, which is patreon.com/PaulBrightFilms. And for, $3 a month, if my fans are able to join me for $3 a month, then that adds up over the course of a year, and that's enough money to actually pay for these movies. So I don't have to be doing these fundraising campaigns to, ask for $50, $100, $1,000 anymore to make these movies. Instead, there'll be a lot more people supporting the work instead of what's been like 40 people.
So is that the biggest difference between GoFundMe and Patreon? Is that it's Patreon is a monthly donation and GoFundMe is...
So Patreon, you're billed automatically once you sign up unless you cancel it. Mm-hmm. And it bills on, I don't know what day of the month, the 1st or something. I don't know. I have no idea.
Right.
And there are some people on Patreon, and so there are a lot of artists and podcasts on Patreon. Ooh, that's an idea for you. Had you thought about that?
As a fact of the matter, I have.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But I would
So patreon.com/ were you still talking?
That's it.
Look for that. Tell me next week.
Look for that soon. I don't know when I'll have it up because I want to sell cigarettes.
I'm sorry.
No.
Why did you just sell vaping pens? Those are really popular right now.
Yeah, those are really popular and may kill more people.
I don't know about that. But
very nice.
Yeah. But anyway, no. So the Patreon is just like a monthly thing, and then there are things that you need to do to keep in touch with the people who are supporting you, and you set up different tiers so people can give more money than $3, and they get other things that the $3 people don't get, basically.
Okay. So, like, what kind of stuff do you get if you donate more, $10 a month?
Right. So, I mean, it's different depending on the kind of art that you are. So, for instance, if you're a musician, then if you're giving, let's say, a higher tier, then you'll get songs released to you long before they're released to anybody else.
Okay.
Or you'll get behind-the-scenes stuff that nobody else gets. For me... the $3 level, everybody gets everything for $3, and then $5, you get to see the movies before anybody else sees the movies because you're with me, and and you'll see some behind the scenes on making the movies and editing and all that stuff. The $10 is pictures of what's really going on in my life, and sometimes they're pictures of me, with my boyfriend, and no nudity, but just some whatever. And then there is a $100 tier in there, which is possible. Some people may actually want to give $100 to support my work. And if you're a Patreon for several months under the $100 level, then you're listed as an associate producer on the movie, whatever movie it is I'm working on at that time.
Right. Oh, okay. That's nice.
Yeah, well, I think
like
so.
That. Yeah.
And I mean, the thing of it is, in all honesty, is there are a lot of people who really, really like my movies. And a whole lot of those people never paid a dime to see them.
Never. So where can people find the movies that are out there? Are they all just internet streaming, or are some of them on Amazon, or some of them...
Yeah, some are on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
At one point, some of them were on Netflix. I don't think I've got any DVDs on Netflix right now, but I might still have some DVDs on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
They're on... they're streaming on platforms all over the world, literally, of which I don't remember all of these streaming platform names. I even got contacted by a company last week. So I have an aggregator that handles the distribution.
Oh, you do? That answers my next question.
Yeah, so I send the movie to this aggregator. It's kind of like a distributor, and they put all these movies into a catalog, and then they go around to all these online streaming services, and the streaming services choose the movies that they want, basically. And then I get an email from the aggregator saying, "Congratulations, your film is now playing on such and such a streamering site." And I'm like, woohoo!
Whoopee! And do they get a percentage of that?
Yeah, they do. They take 25%, something like that. Anyway, so I was contacted directly by a startup streaming service last week asking for 4 films. They are already taking 2 of my movies from the aggregator, and they wanted 4 other movies that weren't on the aggregator. So 4 early movies of mine.
That they knew about.
Well, because he contacted me because he really liked the 2 movies that they already had bought. Oh, okay. And so he wanted to see what else I had. So he went to my website for the movie company. It's PulbrightFilms.com. There were other titles that he wanted to add to his streaming platform. So anyway, I sent him all those movies. That was last week. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the distribution deals with all this is, you sign these contracts where you can't disclose any of the terms, and you can't talk about any of the deals, and you can't talk about percentages or money or any of that stuff at all. But let me just put it to you this way. Right. Paul is not going to get rich. Which is why Paul is on patreon.com/PaulBrightFilms.
So long time ago, you used to be a union actor in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then you moved into theater. Did you have a certain, something that drove you away from doing commercial films, or was it just...
I don't know, Joel, what drove you out of LA? I could ask the exact same question of you.
Well, I actually came up here to take care of old people.
Oh, okay, never mind.
and I wasn't nearly brave enough to act in LA. Okay. I knew Actors House.
So I left LA when I was 23. I'd been doing very well. It was the only way that I'd made money in my life.
Wow.
Except I'd had 2 summer jobs up until that point. And which also meant that when I left LA and I went looking for, what people call a real job, I had no work skills and no resume, because you can list a whole bunch of commercials that you did, but that just doesn't really cut it when you're looking for a job as a waiter. So Yeah, so there were multiple reasons why I left LA. One of them was that I'd outgrown my looks because I was like this geeky, nerdy teenager. It was at the time when Revenge of the Nerds came out, and so even though I wasn't in that movie, I was that type.
Okay.
Right. And so I was getting cast in all those kind of roles. Well, when I turned 23-ish, I was starting to look more like the young dad, but I didn't actually look like a young dad. I still looked like a nerd. So there just weren't very many.
And the young nerdy dad hadn't caught on yet. That's 20 years later.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So for multiple other reasons, I left and I traveled the country and did other stuff. And I came back to it all in my mid-30s. I wound up in a tiny town in Texas, population 10,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you how I got there. But anyway, a population of 10,000. Here's a piece of advice. Don't move for love. No. And anyway, and there was a community theater there in this tiny town. And when I first moved to the town, I went to see their show, and it was so bad. I left after the first scene. I just couldn't. I couldn't stand it. It was so awful.
Yikes.
And a couple of years later, one of the board members, I slipped, and I had led on to my past. And they were filming movies in my little tiny town. So I'm not kidding you. Like just a couple months after I bought my house, lo and behold, this Hollywood production company shows up knocking on my front door wanting to film in my front yard.
Oh my God.
And it turns out that I bought my house on this intersection where there was an old Dairy Queen, a gas station, the movie theater, and an old library. So they filmed Waiting for Guffman there.
Oh my
They
gosh.
filmed The Librarians there. They filmed, What's Eating Gilbert Grape. The list goes on and on. There were like 20 movies filmed right there in my intersection, blocking my street. And at that point, I had a chip on my shoulder about all of this. So, I was livid. I moved 1,500 miles to be away from you people.
And here you are.
And you're in my front yard.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so here's another. So at this point, near the end of that, I'd led on that I'd had that background, and they asked me to help out at the community theater. So I agreed to do tech stuff. I'd do their lighting, and I'd do their sound, and I'd build their sets. And so there was a buddy who I'd met there who also wanted to be doing the stuff. So together we did all that. And we did great jobs. I mean, the shows look great. And I was thinking, well, if the actors are surrounded by great lights and great sound, beautiful sets, they'll just raise themselves to the occasion.
Oh, my. And that, didn't work out that way?
So, at the end of that season, I decided to open my own theater company 3 blocks up the street.
Oh my God.
In this town of 10,000 people. Because they were doing things like Neil Simon plays and Little Women and, family pablum. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be competition with them. So I said, we're going to do some heavy hitting adult material stuff. So we did like Rhinoceros, and we did Death and the Maiden, and the list goes on. So in the 3 years that I was running that theater company, we did 32 productions.
Wow.
Which means that we had a show on stage and 2 shows in rehearsal at all times. Mm-hmm. And we only had 1 weekend of dark because we had to keep selling tickets because we didn't have any corporate sponsors because we were the rebels in town.
Because you were doing good stuff.
And in the first year, literally the first year, we did not have a single person from that tiny town come to see a show.
Oh, they were all from out of town?
They were all from out of town.
Visitors?
They were all from out of town.
They were all the film crews?
So we were bringing people. No, we were bringing people in from San Antonio and Austin and the surrounding communities. And so, it was great for me because we had to do really good work. Otherwise, they wouldn't come and they wouldn't keep coming back.
Right.
At the same time, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So after 3 years of that, I realized that I could make a feature film in a year, and more people would wind up seeing that movie than if I filled every seat, every show for the entire year, because it was like a 99-seat house. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I made my first movie, and it took a couple of years to get it done. And I tell people that it was a lot of fun, but the truth is, it was really stressful. It was not. It was really stressful. And there were a few fights on set, too.
Oh, no. Oh, jeez.
And that movie, even with its technical problems and with its questionable acting, still is, I guess, my most popular because the story was very, very sweet.
Uh-huh.
It's very tender and very sweet, and it pulls at people's heartstrings. And so I couldn't find a distributor for it, and I'd sent it. It was about a gay character, and so I sent it off to 100 and something gay film festivals all over the world to get it to screen, and not a single festival would program it.
You're kidding!
And so then I sent it off. There were like a handful of maybe 5 or 6 distributors of gay titles in those days. This was 2006, 2005. And we were still in DVD land. We hadn't really gone to streaming yet. The internet wasn't quite fast enough for streaming.
It seems like that would make it more desirable. Like there's not a lot out there.
Yeah. So... and nobody would touch it, but one very large, probably the largest distributor, said, well, we know a one-guy shop, distribution guy, and we'll send it to him and maybe he's interested. So he watched the movie and he contacted me and said, listen, I'll sign a contract with you. We probably won't sell more than just a couple hundred DVDs, but I'm going to take the risk to front the costs of, creating this master, and we'll just put it out there and see what happens. And it wound up being his most profitable movie that year.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
And so from that point forward, he said, I'll distribute any movie you make. Uh-huh. So with my buddies, we were like, okay, well, in order for this to work, we have to have like a body of work so that if people see one movie, then they'll want to see all the other movies. Right, and that's how we're going to make this, fiscally viable, right? So we turned out a movie a year during those first 5 years.
Wow.
Which was, once again, really, really driving.
Oh, yeah.
Really driving.
Yeah.
And it was great, and I was in, so I was in the Austin area. This tiny town was south of Austin, but I was in the Austin area through the first 3 of those, and then I moved to New York, I guess I moved to New York when I was filming the 5th one. And now, so the movie that I was filmed was number 11. I've slowed down. It's taking me now about 2 years to get a movie out.
Uh-huh. That's cranking them out. Seems to me. That's moving.
Well, the actors in the movies would like to see them. I mean, I get emails from actors like a month after we filmed. When's it going to release?
When's it coming out? Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, you've had that feeling, haven't you?
Yes. I started on a movie that took like 7 years.
Wow.
It took us, yeah.
Did they finish it?
That was a sci-fi movie. Maybe.
Oh, was that I think I saw that.
Did you?
I saw parts of that. You showed me parts of that, I think. Or maybe all of it.
Well, I might have shown you some clips.
Maybe showed you some clips.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they finish it?
Yeah, it was finished eventually. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Moving right along.
It's amazing effort to keep going. I was really amazed at the writer, director, producer to keep at it for so long.
That is really amazing.
Keep at it. Yeah. Because it she was doing things on also an extremely minuscule budget, and so it's a matter of, well, this editor can't do it anymore. I got to find someone else. And she didn't have the skills to do it all herself.
Yeah.
So
well, see, and the reason why I'm doing it all myself is because of money.
It is because of money. Because that I've always been curious about. I mean, if you could afford an editor, whatever.
Hell yes.
Cinematographer.
Oh yes.
Go for it.
Well, so I had a cinematographer the first 6.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, first 6. It's not till I moved to Oregon that I started shooting myself.
Oh. Because you couldn't find anyone here.
Well, I probably could have, but I mean, I was living in a tiny town in Oregon again.
Right.
And I came down here to Eugene looking for actors.
That's right.
That's right.
That is right.
And so I found actors in Eugene.
That's when I first auditioned for you.
Yes. I found actors in Eugene, and they were awesome.
See you later. Good.
Yeah. Sorry, dude. I know. Well, you didn't fit the type. And it's good because the part you were auditioning for was... Can I say this word? An asshole character. So that's not really you.
It's true, but I've played it.
Yeah, well, it's still not you.
It's not.
So, and the actor who played it did an excellent job.
Oh, I see.
anyway, so yeah, I mean, and with that movie, I mean, I had no money at all, and the actors all knew that I had no money to do it, and I'm thrilled to death that they all jumped on board and were willing to do it, and they were willing to do it because they probably wanted the footage or the experience. So somebody got famous after making that movie, and I really doubt she ever tells anybody she's in this film.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's Jasmine Savoy Brown. She was in a TV series for several years that I guess it was just canceled this past spring.
Oh, don't know who she is. Was it one of the Portland productions?
No, she was down in L.A.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you probably would, because she was also in a movie called Camp Harwood. Weren't you involved with Camp Harwood somewhat?
No, but I think I met you when you were just finishing that or something?
No, I didn't. So I didn't do Camp Harwood.
You didn't
Camp
do that.
Harwood
No.
is a religious feature film.
Oh, okay. No.
And so
I was not
there are
involved with that. I believe I auditioned for the director of that, who was going to do a bunch of films.
Okay.
And pay people and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right. Anyway, so there were a lot of people from Camp Harwood who kind of ran into the same circle who wound up in my movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I've had somebody get famous, and I don't think it's done anything for the sales of that movie.
It hasn't helped.
No.
You haven't even tried.
I haven't. I also haven't cashed in on it. Yeah.
I was going to say, did you put it out there starring?
I haven't changed the movie to Forgotten Heroes starring Jasmine Savoy. Yeah, no. Yeah, so, I mean, it's been based on funds. So if there's no money to do it, then you got to make it work somehow.
Right.
When I was in Austin, at the time that I was there and was first doing it, there was an upswelling of indie filmmakers because the high def was just starting to come out. I just knocked my microphone. Sorry, folks. High definition was just starting to become available on a consumer level that we could afford. And so there were a lot of us who were trying to figure out how to get the equipment to talk to each other, even because a lot of this was new. I mean, how do you record sound, and how are you going to sync the sound to this picture that's not running at the same speed as what the sound is recording at, and what software are you going to use that will be able to import both of these different kinds of, So all that stuff was going on.
Still going on today. It's
not nearly as bad.
It's not as bad, but I still... I know editors and cinematographers who still run into this.
Oh, yeah. Well, oftentimes...
Especially editors.
Yeah, I'll record sound and it won't be running at the same speed as the video.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, okay, we're going to do a little tweaking here. But anyway, so there was another filmmaker in there, and she'd made a couple of short films. And I saw her at a really upscale fundraising event, really she kind of thing where I was volunteering. And I was like, hey, well, why don't you... Her name is Jen. Why don't you, go ahead, Jen. You can make a movie. I've already made 3 films. You could go ahead and make a feature. What's holding you back? And she said, well, I'm not as scrappy as you, Paul.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's a nice compliment, I got to say. Don't you like being scrappy?
I totally took that as the worst insult in the world.
Oh, really?
So then she moved off to L.A., and I followed her IMDb, and she's done nothing since. A little bit of, scrappiness speaking here.
That's a pretty scrappy comment. So I wanted to ask you, you've been all over Oregon filming. And have you, and a lot of times you're filming in nature, outside, like this one you just filmed, you must have been outside a lot doing different things.
Oh, yeah.
So did you see any aliens?
Well, define alien.
UFOs?
Oh, UFOs! Oh, I wasn't asking anyone for identification.
Okay. Oh, that kind of alien.
No, I didn't. They're supposed to.
Aha! That proves it. There's no UFOs.
No. Lack of proof is not proof of lack. No.
It's just as much proof.
It is not.
As the people saying they know about UFOs.
It's not.
It's the same kind of proof.
Sasquatch may well exist.
You may well.
You may
Did
well.
you see Sasquatch?
I did not.
Okay.
We were in Sasquatch territory. But
you were.
Not.
Well, we are. We're pretty close right now.
Yeah, I know.
I've talked to witnesses.
Have you really?
People
Seriously?
have seen. Oh yeah.
In real life?
In real life, yeah.
And they tell you they've seen Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't drunk or high at the time.
I can't guarantee that.
Okay.
I can't guarantee that. But
were they up close and personal, or was it across a long, far stream?
It was closer than that, like down a road, a little ways down a road.
Mm-hmm.
So
how do you know it wasn't just a bear?
Too far. Yeah, it's a good question. Bears. It could have been a bear. Yeah, I suppose it could have been a bear.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I'm not saying that there isn't Sasquatch.
I've never seen Sasquatch.
It's just for the fact that we still haven't seen like a single dead corpse anywhere.
Yeah, it's a hard one to swallow. It gets harder every year to imagine that there's something walking around in the forests of Oregon or Washington, wherever, that we have never seen an actual trace of. Yeah,
and I do live on the edge of the forest, and so I'm aware that there really is a lot of forest up here that's really not necessarily unexplored, but really
there's a lot of forest
traveled
up here that is completely unexplored, probably untouched.
Yeah.
Until there's a big fire. But and actually that shows you when there are forest fires, that's kind of a reminder of how completely inaccessible some of this area is. It's there is no way to fight the fire besides airplanes. That you can't hike into there. Right. You can't drive into there. And in a lot of cases, I think that if someone's seen it, it may have been a long time. And it's hard to get to.
Well, last weekend they said there were 40 lightning strikes. I mean, starting 40 fires just in the Willamette National Forest, which is what I'm next to.
Right.
And but they were so remote. They're like, we're not doing anything about it.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I've known smoke jumpers, and we only hear about the big ones.
Yeah.
They go out every week to a bunch of little ones and put them out.
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
go home.
Yeah, we don't hear about it. Unless somebody dies.
Go home. Yeah. Yeah. And then when they get to, to be acres and acres
but,
and
if we don't hear about it, maybe we should cut their budget.
Yeah. Bad idea. Bad idea. Every year they need more. If only it was a commercial pilot. There's lots of work there.
Yeah.
Lots of work.
Jeez. So I mean, Oregon is just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. So the first movie that I made here, it was the one that with our Eugene actors, and so I made one of those. I made one of those movies where they're in a cabin, isolated in the woods, and they can't phone out. One of those things where there's a killer on the loose, kind of deal, right? The totally trite scenario. But I was like, wow, this is actually true. There's no cell phone service.
You're out there filming it. Wow.
And we filmed at my house, and I'm like, there's no cell phone service. It's like if the power went out, we'd be in deep trouble.
Right.
So I was like, this is not too far of a stretch. Mm-hmm.
It's funny because those movies those Cabin in the Woods movies are never as scary to me because I love the woods. Mm. And I guess.
Yeah, but have you been chased by a guy with a knife?
A few times. But
was it Sasquatch or a bear?
I've not been chased by a guy with a knife. And I'm sure that would not be fun. But the thing about that is, movie makers are always pressing on the fact that you're all alone when you're out in the woods, and if a scary guy comes out, what can you do? And it's like, but you're far more likely to be attacked in the city.
Oh yeah,
that's where people get attacked.
You're on Portland's TriMet Max.
That's what's dangerous, Yeah.
And there's a scary guy sitting next to you. What do you do?
What do you do? Call the police? Good luck. There's a scary
Get off
guy.
at the next stop.
I feel far safer in the woods with the mountain lions and the bears, who tend to run away when they see you.
I haven't seen any bears next to me. I've heard that we have bears, but I've never seen one. I've seen bears on the coast. I've seen bears on Highway 1. Actually, 101.
We have bears right here in Eugene. I haven't seen them either, but we get a lot of sightings.
Okay, now wait. If you haven't seen it, how do you know it's true?
It's not true. It's a
Therefore,
big
Sketchwatch is true.
I do know people who've seen mountain lions nearby, and that I believe.
Yeah, that we have.
Yeah, mountain lions, bears.
Yeah, that we definitely have on my property. We had a what are they called? The female mother. What's that term? Anyway, we had a female give birth to a litter of cubs on my property.
That's awesome. You know what I like about mountain lions?
What?
They're lions.
Yeah.
You know, we forget that we have lions here in America lions, and in Oregon.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. They are big cats.
Yes, they are.
And very big cats.
So when I first lived here, my first summer here, I drove over to Sisters, which I don't know how many of your listeners are from Oregon, but anyway, it's...
one of my guests was from Sisters, who walked 1,200 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, totally awesome.
That's incredible. Good podcast.
That's totally awesome.
Episode 14. No, I don't know. Something.
Oh, cool. Very cool. So for me, it's a 2-hour drive over a 4,000-foot mountain pass.
Right.
Anyway, on a twisty, curvy road. So we were coming, and this highway is really quiet. It's Highway 20. It's very, very quiet. Mm-hmm. Very few cars on the side.
It's very beautiful.
It's very beautiful. So we're coming over and coming down the hill, and there is this wolf. This beautiful, gorgeous white wolf right there standing on the road.
Wow. That's so rare.
And I'm going, wow, so we slow down, and I don't think to take a picture or anything because I'm like, wow, I'm in Oregon. This is probably really common.
Not so much.
And I get back and I look it up and I'm like, this is the famous number 7, of that pack when they were first trying to get wolves to, reconnect.
When there was 4 wolves.
Right, yeah, and I'm like, I saw number 7.
That's great.
And then I called up the ranger station.
Great.
He was on Highway 20.
That's nice. Sweet.
Home.
Yeah, very sweet.
Home. Sweet home.
Sweet home.
Sweet home.
Where you... A little town in Oregon.
Yes. Yeah. The people there are really good, and I'm really looking forward to moving to Portland.
They're great. I can't wait to move.
I can't wait to move to Portland.
So, is that just so that there's Starbucks closer by? Or
at the end of this year. No, Sweet Home is a Starbucks on the Safeway. But
of course.
Of course.
What am I thinking?
At the end of this year, I'm going to be living in Portland.
You are?
Absolutely.
Wow. And
I'm building a tiny house. I've got a place to put that tiny house.
Oh, sweet. Are you building a tiny house where you live now? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll haul it up there at the end of this year. Because, so I'm performing in stage productions up there now.
Oh, right. That's right.
And doing it, so it's a 2-hour commute for me between Portland and where I live in this woods.
Oh, I thought it was closer for
no.
you.
And so having rehearsals 5 nights a week. And
my gosh.
Doing the 2-hour commute both ways. And then, of course, there's traffic or highway construction, which there was this summer. So it really wound up being 3 hours each way. And then I also do stuff during the day.
Uh-huh.
So this summer was really exhausting with the summer show that I did.
Gosh, yeah.
And that was the final straw. I was like, that's it. I'm moving to Portland. I can't keep acting in stage shows up here and not live up here. So,
yeah, my gosh. Stages, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of commitment. Here's my question. Do you...
I thought you weren't going to ask me questions.
I know, I wasn't. Here's my comment.
Here's your comment.
Do you find... That was discussed in our pre-interview.
This isn't a question show.
Okay.
I'm basing this podcast on a podcast where they talk for 3 hours. So if you talk for less than 4...
If you talk for less than 3 hours, I did.
You have failed.
I meant to say we only go for an hour.
Oh.
Oh, we're about wrapped it. No. About it.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming in. And I talked about how this has only gone wrong once and then it went wrong.
Did it go wrong today?
Shut up. Yeah. It's
so we're dependent on...
out.
We're dependent on...
So hopefully this worked, or I'm going to ask you to start over.
We'll have the whole conversation again. And the viewers will know shortly.
It's still going. Oh, this is a tape. It's a little tape machine.
Oh, wow.
I like that graphic. I'm showing for all you listeners, I'm showing the graphic on my digital board, and it's of a cassette tape. I know some of you may not know what that is. A cassette tape is something we used in the 80s.
And before.
They wore out and sounded terrible, and it's a funny graphic for a recorder. Anyway.
So are you going to use that sound effect on this? You're going to kind of stretch the sound a little bit? Yeah, I have the tape crumple a couple times.
They have those plugins. I could easily do that.
It's just garble on it.
Exactly. So do you do anything different for film, acting-wise? For film and theater.
Oh yeah, it's two different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. So, well, and the film world is changing. Film morphs a lot, because if you look at films from the 1930s, they talked in this kind of mid-Atlantic accent, which is like this fake Hollywood studio accent.
Oh, right.
Like,
right.
The Cary Grant accent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which nobody actually talked like that.
Goody.
Right, exactly. But, all the actors kind of have that.
I always wonder where that came from.
Well, it was an accent invented for the movies.
It was. So
Yes.
that was all from acting coaches.
Yes,
they're going to
totally.
talk this way.
Because their theory was that they would be understandable to everyone in the country.
Okay.
With that accent.
Uh-huh.
And with the recording equipment, that they could be understood.
Okay.
So anyway, so we went from, the 30s where people were talking very fast and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now movies, this has really been going on since probably 1990s, I guess. People in the movies, they talk like this.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, and I noticed people talk really quiet, and sometimes when I'm in a film, okay, it's not film, it's video, it's nice to not have to project, but other times I'm really annoyed by the actors who've never been trained to project. And I really feel for the sound people who are like, well, if I get the mic close enough, then
maybe
it's in the
I'll
picture.
get something,
Yeah,
and I'll have to filter out all this background. Yeah. So the deal with movies is, in acting, what they always said was, you just bring yourself down smaller. You just be you, is what they used to say. And as a teenager, I was like, what does that mean to be me? I don't know what that means to be me. I just want a part to play. However, now, after living in New York and getting the experiences from New York, and maybe just because I got older, I finally it made total sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about on-camera work, my total attitude is, you're getting Paul Bright. And if you want Paul Bright to play this part, then you've got me. And if you don't want Paul Bright, then you're not going to cast me, and I don't want to work for you.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't go in there playing a part at all anymore. I'm just doing whatever that scene is or that line is, the way that I would feel and the way that I would relate to that situation if I were in that situation. Does that make sense?
So total method.
Well, whatever. But
no.
It's not.
I do know what you mean.
But it's not me going, okay, let's see, he's got a limp and he's really
right.
He was born in Sicily, but he doesn't have an accent. But right. So I was in a TV series last summer called Documentary Now. Documentary Now was on ITV, I think, is the channel that got it. Mm-hmm. It's done by the people who did Portlandia.
Oh, okay.
It's a bunch of Saturday Night Live folks who did this. Fred Armisen is one of the producers and all that stuff. So anyway, they did a couple of seasons, and then they came back to do a third season a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I got cast in a really plum part in a double episode show, and it was a union job. So I, renewed my union membership dues, and I got all caught up with that. But the casting director was really surprised that I got cast, because she didn't think that they would cast me because I was so effusive. Because I was using my hands, and I was a little bit bigger than life.
Because you were a little bigger.
Right, but the Documentary Now is a parody on real documentaries. Okay. So this parody was, I watched the real documentary to see which character it was that I was supposed to be emulating, and he was an effusive guy.
Animated.
Right, he was an animated guy, and he's sitting there in the chair, and so, the whole thing, and so, of course, they sat me in a chair that looked very, very similar to the whole, real documentary deal, and I'm like, okay, this is exactly what they want. So normally, though, when I'm on camera, I'm just very, very, very confined, very shut down, very few moves. The eyes do most of the work. Very few physical moves. So in my own movies, I always have at least a cameo in my own movies, sometimes more than a cameo. I come across as very, very still.
Right.
Very quiet.
Very quiet.
Right. With theater, so the show that I was doing this summer was Shakespeare. It's the first time I've ever done Shakespeare. I studied with a tutor. I hired a tutor last summer to learn how to perform Shakespeare. She was from the Royal Shakespearean whatever, from London.
And where did you find her?
She was living in Portland at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I paid well to get this training because I didn't want to be asked to be in a Shakespeare show and not know what the hell I was doing. So the training was amazing. It was fantastic. So when I got onto this show, and I didn't audition for it, they called me and they just asked me to do this part. Which is the best thing that an actor can get. Don't you love it when they just cast you?
Yes.
That's the dream come true.
It happens half the time.
It does
in Eugene.
It does. Yeah. And I mean, and the other thing too is that when you have a job, then other jobs come along. So while I was doing this show, 2 other people doing plays asked me to be in their plays, which I turned them both down because I have these movies to edit and I'm not living in Portland.
Right. Oh, okay.
Anyway, but the deal with Shakespeare is, Shakespeare is big and bold and loud and, very physical and over the top in so many ways. So, yeah, totally different.
It's interesting because the last play I did, which was way too long ago, but I had back problems, so I've not been doing plays. But the last play I did was a play about war photographers and war correspondents.
Oh wow!
And it's a 4-person play, and I was an editor. And it's the least amount of acting I've ever done.
What do you mean?
It was conversational.
Right.
So I had to go in, because I always, in other plays I've been in, it's been bigger than life.
Yeah.
And I had to go in and be louder than life, but be very real.
But that is acting too.
Real. And,
but see, that is acting too.
Yes.
That is acting too.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
It's just different. Yeah. So I mean, you just answered your own question.
Oh, I just ask it of everybody. I know my answer.
Okay, what's your answer?
My answer is I think it's the same but different. I mean, I will prep the same for camera work or theater work. Usually, 100% of the time for me so far, theater work has allowed prep. When you do a month of rehearsals or 6 weeks of rehearsals, you get to find out so much about the character, study the character, time to get the lines down, also have to get the lines down. Whereas most of the film work I've done, even though I'm getting scripts months in advance now, for the series I'm doing that I hope one day will come out, knock on wood,
I'll knock on the microphone.
I don't study it as much because I want to be more, especially because it's a comedy.
Yeah.
I don't want to know what the character's going to do till I get there. But it's the same idea, is that I want to know as much about that character so when I show up, it's just going to come out.
Right, that's exactly right.
It's just going to explode,
That's
it's just
exactly
going to come out there.
Yeah. So that's perfect.
That's kind of what I go for.
Yeah. And that's a great approach. Yeah. So I was in a play almost 2 years ago. It was in Salem at Enlightened Theatrics. And it was the first time I'd gotten back on stage in a while. And so there was apprehension about, getting back on stage and memorizing. And I was the lead in this show. It had 2 weeks of rehearsal. 2 weeks.
Ooh, you jumped in.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks.
Jumped right in. And
it was, that character was on stage the entire time except for 2 5-minute breaks. Complete with, super fast costume changes.
Oh my gosh.
Like walk off to the wing and come back out in a different costume kind of thing. And I was so stressed. About memorizing all of that material and getting it down because I hadn't had to memorize that kind of stuff. Because also when you do film, you're not going to film that much that day.
And it may be different when you get there.
Yeah,
memorization is
you always so I'm going to do this page and I have 3 lines.
Yes.
Right.
That's kind of the beauty. And
right. I know. That's a great thing about filming. And if you flub up the line, then you can just do it again.
That was perfect. If you flub the line, yes.
Right, whereas in theater you can't. So, I was very proud of myself for the fact that I was able to memorize all of it, and I did pull off the role. There were people who were really, really thrilled with my performance, and I was delighted, and that was great. So it was a win in so many ways. But then I was also like, let's make some better life choices in the future about some things. Don't don't agree to do a play with 2 weeks rehearsal.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That would drive me nuts.
And even that theater company has changed the way they do it now. They don't do it that way anymore. And I'm thinking, oh, smart.
Yeah, I was in a play, a Christmas play, where one of the characters is Ebenezer Scrooge. It wasn't the Christmas Carol. It takes place a year after A Christmas Carol, and he's suing the ghosts.
Oh, good.
And Ebenezer had to drop out for personal reasons.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was about 2 weeks before we were going to open. So thankfully it was at very little theater, so they knew someone that could come in and do it.
Come in and step in.
It was like, oh God, I'm so glad I'm not. And Ebenezer's on stage the
whole time.
Play. He's like, that's it. I was playing 2 characters, and had far less lines. I was still very nervous about having them down by the time it came up. Especially because one of my characters was a ghost that I was playing way over the top, and somehow that makes it harder to remember what you're saying.
Well, that was the thing about Shakespeare, is it is a different language.
Yeah, that's...
And I'm trying to get the language right, because, some of it was prose, and so you don't want to add or use the wrong word, or add an A, or whatever. Right. And so it took me so much longer, even though I had, 4 weeks rehearsal on this one, and I had a small part. I played 3 different characters, but they were small parts. So, it wasn't a ton. But it just took me so long to get that memorized, because I have got to get this exactly correct.
Right. I've always been too nervous to do Shakespeare.
Well, and then we're running the show, and after so it was a 5-week run. Mm-hmm. And after the second week, the cast is starting to get, more comfortable and loose with it. Mm-hmm. And I was working with some really amazing people, and there was one actor on it. His name is Rusty Tennant Newsom, and it was because he was in it that I agreed to do the show in the first place, because I wanted to learn from him, because he's an extraordinary performer. Mm-hmm. And he teaches up at Reed College up in Portland. Anyway, and so and he had one of the leading roles. He had a huge role. Anyway, so people are starting to ad-lib lines, and things are getting changed and dropped, and that's totally cool.
And it worked.
And it was totally awesome, And I was like, wow, Paul, you had really been sweating.
You've really been sweating, and it worked. It still is okay.
And you've been, beating yourself up because you got a line kind of wrong there in the last performance, and I'm like, let's pay attention to what everybody else is doing. Oh, okay, no problem.
Nice. That's what I thought when we had this 4-person play, and the lines were over the top of each other, It's like, you want some coffee, sure. That kind of thing, for pages and pages and pages. So there were spots where if I flubbed the line because I'm completely changing the subject. So if I mess that line up, that's like a page. We're going to have to skip a page if I do this wrong.
Get on to the next thing.
And it always amazed me when we did, because of course we flubbed lines.
Oh, sure.
It always amazed me how quickly we could pick it up, because, when you're on stage and you're doing it, it just happens. And
the audience doesn't know.
They have no idea.
Unless you turn to the audience and you're like, oops. No, they don't know.
And there were times when I didn't know, when one of the other actors said, oh, I messed up that line. Oh.
You did?
Like, okay. Well, I reacted and it worked.
This summer I remember coming off and I was like, did I say that line? I don't even remember if I said that.
Oh, yeah. But I was so nervous I would run lines before every scene. I was pacing up and down, making sure I had my lines in my head.
I was doing that too.
Day.
I was doing that for the first 3 weeks, and then finally I didn't need to anymore. But yeah.
I think it was the last week of the run that. No, I did it every time, just so it would be there. And, yeah. Well,
I've always had this thing. Ever since I was a kid. So I started doing plays when I was in high school, mm-hmm. and I've always had this thing that I was terrified that I would step on stage and not remember my first line.
Oh gosh, yes.
So for me, I always had to, in my mind, say that first line, because if I got the first line right, probably everything else is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just getting over that initial, So during the run of the show, it was at the very, very beginning of one of the performances, and there's a song, which I'm not in this part, but there was an actress who came out there to sing the song, and she blanked. She couldn't think of the first verse.
Oh my gosh.
So she just kind of, hummed. And of course she's coming back, and she's beating herself up for having done that, and I'm like, oh, don't feel so bad. Don't worry.
Don't worry.
That's like the worst fear that we all have.
Yep. I just ran into that. Was it yesterday? I was just filming yesterday, and it was a group scene. So there's line, and I had 2 of the lines, and it's like we're on like take 3 or something. So we've got it figured out where we're supposed to be. We're walking and talking, and I'm totally blanking. I'm like, uh-oh, I do not remember that line at all. But I did remember, it'll come to me.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's another thing that I realized, that if you listen to the other actors, that line will just, it'll drop right back in.
Yeah, because you'll remember how to respond to that.
Because you don't want to screw up a take just because.
What were you filming?
This is Oof. It's
is this the series you're talking about?
It's the series.
Okay, cool.
About. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's not out yet.
Ooh.
I mean, because it's not done yet. But I am interviewing a lot or having a lot of the cast on the podcast.
But they can't talk
just
about
for
it.
Fun. Oh, they can talk about it all they want. It's just I hate to talk about things that may never come out too much.
Know that?
But, you know.
You don't know that.
No. I mean, Nick's amazing. He'll get it done.
Yeah, he'll get it done. He's gotten everything else done, as far as I know.
Everything I've been in. Yeah. I've been in 2 short films.
Everything that I know,
and he got it done in 48
hours.
That's true. He pretty much has gotten everything done.
Yeah, he's a driven guy.
Yeah, he is.
Should we tag him in this podcast so he can come in and make a comment about how driven he is?
Absolutely. He's going to be on this podcast when I schedule him.
Excellent.
I mean, he agreed to be on.
Okay, good.
So, very soon they'll have him in here. He's a brand new kid, too. Brand new boy.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
He's already got a kid. I don't know.
It's his first. It's his first, and he broke his leg, and he just started to learn to walk, and he broke his leg. So
oh my gosh! Wow.
I thought, wow, that sounds terrible, but look at it this way: you're over the first one. You got that out of the way, and he's fine.
Okay.
He'll be okay.
Yeah. So now he can break his neck. Okay, great. That's awesome.
No, I was thinking the opposite. He'll never break anything again. It's done deal.
Or maybe he'll break a lot. Oh, well, okay.
Oh, well, whichever way.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to talk about that on the podcast.
Yeah. Oops, already did.
Hey, Nick. Oops. I didn't say that,
Nick.
Sorry. Dude, I haven't seen you in so long. I hope you're doing great.
Fine. It's going to be excellent. Well, we have been babbling for a while. Even, hopefully. Hopefully this recording will work.
We'll find out.
So we'll find out. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to read the intro now.
Okay.
So first of all, thanks. Thanks for being on the podcast, Paul. It's been
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been really nice having you. Lots of good energy in this room today. Today on my podcast, Were You Still Talking? I've had Paul Bright, who's a writer, actor, director, editor of 11 feature films. He started his career as a union actor before graduating from Hollywood High. Hollywood High, in the Hollywoods. He was the founding artistic director of repertory theater in Austin, Texas area, and realized more people would see a single movie than an entire season of theater. He resigned from producing stage plays to direct feature films in 2005, and his movies are distributed around the world, both legally and illegally. 2 films are in post-production, 9 films are streaming online from many different platforms. They're all linked. You heard about them all on this very podcast. Thanks for listening in. This is Joel Albrecht with Paul Bright. This has been Were You Still Talking? Be good to each other.